Kade Zeller's shirt was still damp from the dishwater when his best friend shoved a tie into his hands and said, "You're going." "I'm not going on some pity date," Kade muttered, trying to wipe spaghetti sauce off the sleeve of his only decent blazer. "I've got to get home before Vinny's bedtime." "He's with my sister," Nate shot back. "You've got one night without work, without your kid, and without an excuse. Go, you need this." Kade glanced down at his work shoes, scuffed, soaked, and still damp from the kitchen floor at the diner he managed part-time. Nothing about him screamed date night, but the look in Nate's eyes was firm. The kind of look that said this wasn't a suggestion. So, with zero enthusiasm and the faint smell of garlic lingering on him, Kade stepped into the upscale downtown bistro, feeling like a fraud among the wine glasses and polished marble. He scanned the room, looking for a sign, literally, a name card or something. What he found instead was a woman sitting at a corner table, legs crossed, sipping a glass of red wine like she owned the room. Because she did. Zara Langston didn't do blind dates. Not until her assistant claimed she'd found someone refreshingly real and different from the usual finance bros. Zara had rolled her eyes but agreed, more for amusement than hope. She hadn't expected much, certainly not a man walking in looking like he'd fought off a tornado, but with a jawline so sharp it could cut glass and eyes that carried the weight of the world. He paused when he saw her, their eyes locked. Zara gave a soft, amused smile. "Seat's not going to pull itself." Kade blinked. "Right, sorry. I wasn't sure if this was the right table." "You're late," she said, not unkindly. "But I'll forgive you if you sit down and tell me your name." "Kade," he said, sliding into the seat across from her, still fidgeting with the tie he'd clearly put on in a rush. "Kade Zeller." "Zara Langston." "Nice to meet you, Zara," he said, still feeling wildly out of place. She tilted her head, eyes studying him. "You look like you had a day." He gave a dry laugh. "That obvious?" Zara leaned in slightly, resting her forearms on the table. Her watch caught the candlelight Rolex, obviously, but her expression held none of the judgment he expected. "Tell me something honest." Kade blinked. "Like what?" "Anything. Everyone lies on these things. Impress me with something real." He hesitated. Most women didn't want real. They wanted polished. They wanted stability. He had none of that. "I didn't want to come tonight," he admitted. "My kid has a science project due tomorrow, and I work double shifts 6 days a week. I smell like lasagna, and I don't know what half the items on this menu are." Zara's lips parted in surprise, then slowly curved into a smile. "That is the most honest thing I've heard in 5 years." He stared at her, unsure what to make of her reaction. "You're not mad." "I'm intrigued." The waiter appeared, and Zara took the lead, ordering a bottle of wine and 2 dishes without blinking. Kade didn't even know what she said, something French, but he figured it was safer to let her choose than to embarrass himself. "You're a dad?" Zara asked once they were alone again. "Yeah, Vincent. He's 7. Smart as hell and eats more than a linebacker." Her eyes lit up. "I love that." "You do?" "I run a company, Kade. I know a lot of men who'd rather talk about their stock portfolio than their kids. It's refreshing." Kade leaned back, watching her. "What do you do?" Zara hesitated. "Let's just say I'm in tech." He narrowed his eyes. "What kind of tech?" "The kind that makes a difference," she said smoothly, changing the subject. "What do you do when you're not working or parenting?" He laughed again. "That's my entire life." Zara swirled her wine. "You ever want more?" Kade looked at her seriously. "Every day, but I'm not exactly in a position to chase dreams." Their food arrived, and Kade tried not to react when he realized there were no prices on the menu. He tasted the meal, something creamy and rich, and nearly groaned. "Okay, This might be worth the stress of finding a babysitter. Zara grinned. See, you're already enjoying yourself. They talked for an hour more. He told her about raising Vinny alone after his ex walked out. She told him vague things about her busy schedule and managing teams. She asked questions like she actually cared, and he answered without trying to impress. By the time they stood, the city was glowing outside, and Zara touched his arm gently. Walk me to my cars. He nodded, heart thumping. They stepped out into the cool night air. Her car, a sleek black Bentley with a driver, waited quietly by the curb. Kade stared. That yours? Zara hesitated, then smiled. Yes. Before he could say anything, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. Thank you for the most real night I've had in a long time. He was still staring as she stepped into the car, and it pulled away. Kade stood there, confused, slightly flustered, and with the ghost of her touch still on his skin. He had no idea who she really was. And she had no idea just how hard he'd already started falling. The next morning, Kade stood at the kitchen counter, pouring cereal into a chipped bowl while Vincent sat cross-legged on the floor with a shoebox full of wires, batteries, and plastic bottle caps. Dad, do you think, can make the volcano erupt with soda and Mentos, or should I try the baking soda thing again? Kade rubbed the back of his neck. Let's stick with what didn't turn the kitchen into a war zone last time. Vincent made a face but nodded. Okay, but it needs to be cooler than Mia's project. Her dad helped her build a solar-powered windmill. Kade crouched beside him and ruffled his hair. Yours is gonna explode. No one forgets the kid with the explosion. Vincent grinned. You're the best. Kade smiled, but inside he felt the pressure simmering. Rent was due in 3 days. The fridge was half empty, and the tips from last night barely covered groceries. The date with Zara felt like it had happened in another lifetime, one where he hadn't needed to count every dollar. He'd assumed that would be the end of it, a one-off evening with a woman too far above his world to ever look back. And yet, that afternoon, as he was wiping down the counter at the diner, Nate walked in, holding out a phone. She wants to see you again. Kade blinked. Who? Nate raised an eyebrow. The woman from last night, Zara, said you left too fast. I didn't leave. She got into a Bentley and disappeared into the night like a Marvel character. She still called. Kade hesitated. How did she even get your number? I gave it to her. You what? Dude, she asked. What was I supposed to say? No to the woman who paid our entire check last night and tipped $50 on water. Kade stared at the phone like it might burn his fingers. What does she want? She said to meet her at the rooftop garden above the Sycamore building. 5 o'clock. I have a shift. I already swapped it with Lenny. I have to pick up Vinny. My sister's got him. Kade narrowed his eyes. You're disturbingly invested in my love life. Nate shrugged. Someone's gotta be. By 5, Kade found himself riding an elevator lined with glass that climbed above the skyline, his heart pounding harder with every floor. He stepped out into a rooftop garden unlike anything he'd ever seen. Rows of manicured hedges, soft music floating from hidden speakers, and a sunset that looked like it had been painted just for the occasion. Zara sat on a bench near the edge, her coat folded beside her, hair loose around her shoulders. She didn't rise when he approached, just turned her head and gave a quiet nod. You came. I'm not sure why. She patted the bench beside her. Then sit until you figure it out. He sat, hands braced on his knees. I'm not used to this. Being invited to places like this, talking to women like you. Zara didn't look away from the skyline. Do you think I bring men here often? I think you don't usually wait around for guys like me. She turned to him. You think I'm after someone who wears suits and talks about quarterly projections. He didn't answer. I spend every day surrounded by polished, curated men who know how to say the right thing, wear the right watch, and lie through their teeth. You walked into that restaurant last night and told me you smelled like lasagna. Do you know how rare that is? Kade ran a hand through his hair. I'm just trying to survive. I don't have time to be charming. I don't want charming, she said. I want honest. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of wind weaving through the hedge walls. I have questions, he said finally. Ask. What do you actually do? Zara leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. Co-founded a software company when I was 23. We built data infrastructure for city governments. Sold it 5 years later. Started another firm 2 years ago. I'm CEO now. Kade blinked, like a real CEO. Is there another kind? I thought you were in tech. That's practically a whole empire. Zara shrugged. It sounds bigger than it feels. Most days, I'm just managing chaos. He looked at her differently now. Not because of the money or the title, but the weight she carried in her voice. The same kind he wore on his shoulders every time his son asked for something he couldn't provide. Why me? He asked quietly. She didn't hesitate, because you didn't try to be anyone else. He swallowed hard. I can't give you anything fancy. I can't take you to places like this. I can't even promise I'll have more than $20 in my wallet next week. I don't care. You should. Zara's expression softened. Do you want to see me again? He looked out toward the horizon, lights blinking across the city like stars. I do. Then let me be the one with $20 sometimes, she said. Let me take the lead just once. Kade exhaled, the tension in his jaw easing. That's not how I was raised. She nodded. Neither was I, but maybe that's why this works. A pause. Tell me something about you I don't know yet, she said. He glanced over. I used to sing. Before Vinny was born, I played guitar every Friday night at this little bar near campus. Zara's brows lifted. Why'd you stop? Life got in the way. You ever think about going back to it? All the time. She stood, offering her hand. Come with me. Where? Just trust me. He hesitated, then took her hand. They walked down 2 levels into a private lounge that overlooked the city. A baby grand piano stood in the corner, untouched. Zara spoke to the hostess in hushed tones, and moments later, the room was theirs. I don't play piano, he said. But you sing. He looked at her, then at the piano, then back to her. You're insane. I'm a CEO. It's basically the same thing. He laughed, the sound surprising even him. She sat on a velvet couch, legs tucked under her, waiting. Kade approached the piano, ran a finger along the keys, and started humming low under his breath. Then, without thinking too hard, he began to sing. Not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly. When he finished, he turned to find her watching him not with admiration, but with something deeper. Something raw. I think I'm in trouble, she whispered. Kade stepped away from the piano and crossed to her, every inch between them crackling. Yeah, he murmured, me too. The next week unfolded like nothing Kade had experienced in years, quiet moments where silence wasn't heavy, but full. Zara wasn't the type to flood his phone or demand attention, but when she did call, she asked questions no one else ever had. Not about work or money, but about who he was before life got complicated. What he thought about when he couldn't sleep. Whether he still believed in anything he used to dream about. He didn't know how to answer half of it, but he tried anyway. One Thursday afternoon, after his shift ended early because of a burst pipe in the diner's back kitchen, he picked Vincent up from school and found a note tucked into his backpack. Vinny handed it over, eyebrows raised. "It's from Miss Langston. She said it was for you." Kade unfolded the thick card, his name written in ink that looked hand-lettered. Inside, one sentence. "Tonight, 7, don't eat first." No name, no address, just a black metal key clipped to the corner. He stared at it, heart thudding. Zara hadn't seen where he lived. He hadn't told her much about Vincent's school either, not directly. But she'd found a way without making it feel invasive. Later, once Vincent had been dropped off with Nate's sister again, and Kade had changed out of his uniform into the only button-down he owned that didn't look like it had been through a blender, he followed the instructions down a quiet street near the harbor. The key fit into a wrought iron gate that opened to a narrow garden path. Warm light spilled from sconces along the brick wall, guiding him to an elevator that led to a loft above a converted warehouse. When the doors opened, the scent of roasted garlic and citrus hit him first. Zara stood in the open kitchen, not dressed for a gala or a boardroom, but barefoot, wearing jeans and a soft gray top with her sleeves rolled to the elbows. Her hair was pulled back, and she was chopping herbs with surprising precision. He stepped in slowly. "Is this your place?" "No," she said without turning. "It's one of the company's short-term properties. I use it when I need to disappear for a night." "I disappear?" "From people who expect me to be someone I'm not." She finally looked up, smile easy. "Hungry." He closed the door behind him. "Starving." She gestured to the small table set for two beneath hanging Edison bulbs. A candle flickered between two plates, and the food smelled like it had come from a 5-star kitchen. But she hadn't ordered in. The pans on the stove were still warm. "You cooked?" he asked, incredulous. "I'm not completely useless," she said. "I just don't usually have the time." As they sat, Kade studied her. Everything about her tonight was different. Not just the clothes or the setting her energy, the way she moved slower, less guarded. He picked up his fork. "This looks unreal." "It's not lasagna, but I figured I owed you something better than overpriced duck confit and a wine list thicker than a Bible." He laughed, then took a bite and froze. "Okay, that's really good." "Don't act so surprised." "You're full of surprises." She tilted her head. "So are you." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Then she set her fork down and leaned on her elbow, watching him. "What do you want, Kade?" He blinked. "You mean long-term?" "I mean right now, in this moment, if you could have anything." He stared at her. No one had ever asked him that without a catch, without making him feel like the answer had to be reasonable. "I want to stop counting everything," he said slowly. "Every dollar, every hour, every time I tell Vinny no." Zara didn't flinch, didn't offer some canned sympathy. She just nodded. "What about you?" he asked. "I want to feel like myself, without having to explain who that is." He considered that. "Do you?" "With you sometimes." That silenced him more than anything else could have. After dinner, they ended up on the rooftop deck, wrapped in blankets against the chill. The city glittered below, boats moving slowly through the harbor. Zara handed him a glass of cider. "Can I ask you something?" He nodded. "Do you resent her, Vinny's mom?" He didn't answer right away. The air felt heavier now, like the question stirred something he usually kept buried. "I used to," he said finally, "but not anymore. If she hadn't left, I wouldn't have learned what I was capable of. I wouldn't have Vinny the way I do now." She nodded once, her expression unreadable. "Do you want more kids?" she asked softly. He turned to her, surprised. I don't know, he admitted. I've been in survival mode so long, I never thought past next week. Zara looked out at the water. I never thought I'd want them, but lately. She trailed off, and he didn't push. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then, without warning, she said, You scare me. He frowned. What? You're the only thing haven't been able to control in a long time. He turned toward her, setting his glass down. I'm not trying to scare you. I know, she said quietly. That's what makes it worse. He reached for her hand, his palm rough against hers. I don't know where this is going, he said, but I know I haven't felt this steady in years, and somehow you're part of that. She looked up at him, eyes shining but not tearful, just open. I want more nights like this, she said, but don't want to pretend. I don't want to compartmentalize you from the rest of my life. Kade's heart pounded, then don't. You don't understand, she said, voice harder now. I have investors, a board, people who already think I'm too emotional to lead because don't play the game like my male counterparts. He let go of her hand and stood, walking to the edge of the balcony. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, you think I care about any of that? She stood too, arms folded. You should. Your life is hard enough. You don't need the circus that comes with mine. He turned to face her. You don't get to decide what's too much for me. Zara's jaw tensed. I'm trying to protect you. Don't, he said. Don't protect me from you. She froze. I've had people walk away before. If you're going to do it, just do it. But don't pretend it's about shielding me. That's not your call. Her breath caught. Neither of them moved. Then slowly, she stepped forward and rested her hand on his chest. I don't want to walk away. Then don't, he said again, more quietly this time. He leaned down, and she met him halfway. The kiss wasn't rushed or frantic, it was patient, thorough, like two people finally choosing to stop holding back. When they finally pulled apart, her fingers curled into his shirt. I've never let anyone this close, she whispered. He touched her cheek, voice low. We're already here. And for the first time in years, neither of them said a word to fill the silence. Because it finally felt like enough. The invitation came 3 days later, tucked inside a cream envelope slid under Kade's apartment door. Vincent had just gone to bed, and Kade was cleaning up the mess from an after-dinner science experiment gone sideways when he spotted it. His hands were still damp from scrubbing the kitchen floor as he opened it. Inside was a single card, embossed with dark navy lettering. Langston and Hartwell Annual Gala. Saturday, 8 o'clock, formal attire required. There was no note, no signature, just the event, the time, and the place, but he knew who'd sent it. He stared at the card for a long time before setting it down on the table beside a stack of overdue bills. He didn't belong at a gala, he didn't even own a suit. And yet, Saturday night arrived, and he stood in front of a mirror in a charcoal tuxedo that had been delivered that morning with a tag stitched in gold thread. Custom tailored for Kade Zeller. Nate leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You look like someone who could shut down Wall Street with a single glance. I look like I'm pretending. No, Nate said, shaking his head. You look like a man who's finally being seen the way he should have been all along. Kade adjusted the cufflink with shaking fingers, then glanced over at Vincent, who was curled up on the couch with a bowl of popcorn and a movie already playing. You're sure your sister doesn't mind keeping him overnight? She threatened to keep him all weekend, Nate said. Said she wants to finish the space shuttle they started. Kade nodded slowly. Right. He climbed into the black car, parked outside a car he hadn't called for. But that had been waiting anyway, and tried to ignore the way his heart thundered with every turn. The gala was held inside a glass-encased atrium downtown, lit from within like a palace. As he stepped out, the valet took one look at him and opened the door without hesitation. The moment he entered the building, the hush fell. Not from judgment, but from recognition. Because she was already there. Zara stood at the top of the staircase in a floor-length black dress, sleek and minimal, her hair swept into a low knot. There were no jewels, no flash, just her, and every head turned when she descended the steps. But her eyes never left him. He waited at the bottom, and she stopped in front of him like she'd been walking toward him her entire life. "You came," she said. I still don't know if that was brave or stupid. You wore the suit. You sent it. I hoped you would. He glanced around at the crowd: investors, politicians, media figures, people with polished smiles and champagne flutes. You sure I'm not going to embarrass you? She drew closer, lowering her voice. I don't care if you do. I might not know who half these people are. Most of them don't know who they are either. He gave a quiet laugh, and she reached for his hand. I want you next to me tonight, she said. Not behind me, not in the shadows, next to me. He hesitated only a second before threading his fingers through hers. And together, they stepped into the heart of the room. The night blurred in Sparks' handshakes, introductions, glasses clinking, Zara speaking with command and clarity while never letting go of him. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. When people looked at him, they looked with curiosity, not dismissal, because she looked at him like he mattered. Near the end of the evening, as the crowd began to thin, a man in his 60s approached, tall, salt and pepper hair, navy suit that looked hand-stitched. Zara, he said, smiling, I see I'm late to meet the mystery. Zara tensed slightly but smiled. Kade, this is Malcolm Hartwell, my co-founder. The man extended his hand. So you're the one who's been distracting our CEO. Kade met his grip evenly, only when she lets me. Malcolm chuckled, fair enough. Then more quietly, she's changed since you came around, in a good way. After Malcolm walked off, Kade turned to her. You didn't tell me people noticed. They notice everything, she said. That's the problem. He looked at her, something quiet and searching in his eyes. What happens after tonight? I don't want to go back to pretending you're just an afterthought in my life, she said, but I can't promise it'll be easy. I've never had easy, he said, but I've had real, and this is the realest thing I've felt in a long time. She took a breath. There's something I want to show you. They slipped away from the crowd, exiting through a side door into a private terrace. The city lights stretched beyond them, and Zara reached into her clutch, pulling out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to him. He opened it, reading slowly. It was a proposal, not romantic, business. A children's education program, funded through a new foundation, one she was starting in Vinny's name. Kade stared at the paper, then at her. I don't understand. You once said you wanted to stop counting everything, she said. Can't fix every part of your life, but I can do this. This is ours, something lasting, something that matters. His throat tightened. You're naming it after my son. He's the reason you fight so hard. I want to honor that. He folded the paper carefully. This isn't just a gesture, it's a future. She took a step closer. So let's build it. He shook his head slightly, overwhelmed. You could have anyone. You could have a man who knows what fork to use first and doesn't flinch when someone says hedge fund. I don't want that man, she said. I want the one who sings like the words could break him. The one who teaches his son how to build volcanoes and still shows up for a woman who terrifies him. He reached out, cupping her face. I love you, he said, the words unshaken, certain. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I don't expect anything, he added. You don't owe me your world, but I want to be part of it. Not for the money, not for the spotlight, for you. She stepped into him, slid her arms around his waist. I've spent my whole life building things that looked perfect, she said, but you're the first thing that feels right. He kissed her there under the city lights, with no crowd, no expectations, just them. And when she pulled back, breathless, she whispered, "Come home with me." That night, they didn't talk about logistics or tomorrow. They didn't plan or second guess. They just let it be. And in the morning, when Vincent came through the front door of Zara's townhouse to find Kade cooking breakfast in her kitchen, he didn't ask questions. He just grinned, climbed onto a stool, and said, "You made pancakes." Zara appeared behind him, barefoot, hair still tousled, and pressed a kiss to the top of Vincent's head. "We made them together." Kade turned, spatula in hand, and met her gaze. This wasn't survival anymore. It was life. And it was finally theirs. Zara didn't cry easily. But 3 weeks after the gala, she found herself standing outside a brick school building, trying to blink away the sting in her eyes as she watched Kade crouch beside Vincent, helping him adjust his homemade astronaut helmet. "You've got your speech," Kade asked, tightening the strap under Vincent's chin. "Memorized it," Vincent said proudly, and added the part about the oxygen tanks. Kade gave a nod of approval. "That's my guy." Zara stood a few feet away, holding the box of display materials they'd stayed up past midnight finishing. Posters, diagrams, and a small model of the shuttle Vincent had built from recycled cereal boxes and paper towel rolls. It wasn't polished, but it was brilliant. When Vincent ran inside to join his class, Kade turned to her, his face lit with quiet pride. "He was nervous last night," he said. Said he didn't think he belonged with the other kids, said their presentations looked more real. Zara brushed a curl behind her ear. "And now?" "He said he's going to win. Even if he doesn't, he thinks he will. That's what matters." Zara stepped closer, her voice low. "You did that for him." Kade met her eyes. "No, we did." They stood in silence for a beat, the morning sun warming the sidewalk beneath them. "I've been thinking," Zara said, glancing at the building, "about what it means to belong." Kade waited, sensing this wasn't a small thought. "I spent years building walls around my life," she said, "and I convinced myself that was strength, but maybe it was just fear, of letting anyone see who I really am, of letting anyone in." He didn't interrupt. She looked at him then, something unguarded in her expression. "You and Vincent, you didn't just fit into my life, you made me want to rebuild it." Kade exhaled slowly. "I've been offered jobs before, promotions, even a scholarship once, but no one's ever offered me a future." Zara reached into her bag and pulled out a slim envelope, handing it to him. He opened it and read the letter inside, eyebrows lifting as he scanned the page. "Langston Hartwell Foundation," he read, "Director of Community Innovation." "You've been working with kids since before I met you," she said. "You've seen what they need. I want this to be yours to shape. Not a handout, a partnership." Kade stared at the letter, then looked up. "I didn't go to college," he said. "You don't need a degree to have vision. You've got experience, heart, and grit. I'll give you a team, resources, and you give me the kind of impact that only someone like you can create." He folded the letter carefully. "You know you're changing my life." "I hope so," she said, "because you changed mine." A horn honked down the street, and Zara glanced at her watch. "Come on," she said, "we're going to be late." "Late for what?" She smiled and took his hand. "You'll see." They took the long route through the city, winding down to the waterfront where a small building stood with a paper sign taped to the glass. Future site of the Vincent Zeller Learning Center. Kade stared through the window at the hollow space inside bare floors, exposed beams, and sunlight pouring in through tall windows. "We bought it last week," Zara said. "Renovations start Monday. Classrooms, art spaces, a tech lab, it's all happening." His voice broke. "You named it after him." "I named it after the boy who reminded me that curiosity isn't a luxury, it's life." He pulled her into his arms and held her close, the world narrowing down to the woman who had become both flame and anchor. That night, they returned to her townhouse, where Vincent was waiting in a space that now felt like home to all of them. He ran to the door with a plastic medal around his neck. "Second place," he shouted, but the teacher said it was the most creative one. Zara crouched down and held out her arms. "I'm so proud of you." He beamed. "You know what I'm gonna build next." "What?" "A real rocket, one that really flies." Kade ruffled his hair. "Then we'll need a backyard big enough to launch from." Zara looked up. "I might know a place." The house came a month later, an old brownstone with ivy curling along the brick, and a wide backyard perfect for rocket launches and impromptu stargazing. It wasn't flashy, but it was theirs. The day they moved in, Vincent insisted on planting a flag in the front yard made from an old coat hanger and a dish towel. "This is our base," he declared. "No one gets in unless they bring snacks." Zara laughed and saluted. "Yes, Commander." That evening, after Vincent fell asleep beneath glow in the dark constellations Kade had helped paint on his ceiling, Zara and Kade sat on the back steps, watching fireflies spark in the grass. "I used to believe love had to be earned," she said, "that it came with conditions, expectations, but you just showed up, again and again." Kade rested his chin on her shoulder. "You made it easy to stay." She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marry me." He blinked. "Are you serious?" She nodded. "I don't want a ring or a ceremony with 500 people. I want you. I want Vincent. I want mornings with burnt pancakes and science projects and a partner who makes me feel like I'm enough." He kissed her slowly, reverently. Then yes, 100 times yes. They married 2 weeks later in the backyard, under white lights strung between the trees, Vincent serving as ring bearer and efficient in a bow tie he insisted on wearing sideways. Nate stood off to the side, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief he swore wasn't his. Zara wore a simple dress that fluttered in the breeze, and Kade wore the same suit she'd given him for the gala. They exchanged vows they wrote together, promises not of perfection, but of persistence, of choosing each other even when the world made it hard. After, they danced barefoot on the grass, while Vincent played music from a speaker balanced on a cooler. It wasn't grand. It was perfect. And when the stars came out, Kade pulled Zara close and whispered, "I used to think love was something other people got to keep." "You were wrong," she said, resting her head against his chest. "I know," he said, "because now it's mine. And it always would be."